There is a specific vulnerability that comes with camping. We like to tell ourselves we are escaping the noise of the modern world. We want to find peace. But when the sun goes down, reality sets in. You are miles away from help. You are wrapped in a thin layer of nylon. You are lying on the ground in total darkness. The only thing separating you from whatever is walking around in the woods is a zipper. We assume that if we are alone, we are safe, because there is no one around to hurt us. But the most terrifying realization isn't that you are alone in the woods. It's realizing that you thought you were alone, but you were wrong. I have never told this story to anyone because I know how insane it sounds. But I swear on my life, every word of this is true. My name is Ben. I grew up canoeing in the Boundary Waters Canoe Area Wilderness in Minnesota. It is a massive wilderness area, thousands of lakes, no roads, no electricity, no cell service. Once you paddle in, you are totally alone. Last summer, I took a solo trip deep into the interior. I wanted total isolation. It took 2 full days of hard paddling to get to my destination. By the time I reached the lake, I hadn't seen another human soul in 48 hours. I set up camp on a small island in the center of the lake. It was tiny, covered in dense pine trees and jagged granite boulders. I chose it because it felt safe. No one could approach without a canoe. It was the 3rd night. The weather was dead calm. The lake was like a black mirror. It reflected the stars so perfectly you couldn't tell where the water ended. I was sitting by my fire around 9:30 p.m. Then I heard it. Splosh. It was the distinct, rhythmic sound of a paddle hitting the water. Dip, pull, lift. I froze. I scanned the horizon. I expected to see a silhouette, but there was nothing, just the empty black lake. I told myself I was imagining it, maybe a beaver. I put the fire out and crawled into my tent. I zipped the heavy canvas door shut and fell into an exhausted sleep. I woke up abruptly a few hours later. The air in the tent was freezing. I lay there in the pitch black, holding my breath, listening. Crunch. It was the sound of a dry twig snapping right outside the tent. My stomach dropped. Bears make noise. They shuffle and grunt. This was different. This was slow, deliberate. Crunch. Another step. Closer. This was the sound of something walking on 2 legs, trying to be quiet. I slowly reached for my hunting knife. My hand was shaking. I grabbed my flashlight with the other hand. I didn't turn it on yet. The moon was full that night. It cast a pale light through the rain fly. Then a shadow appeared against the fabric. My blood ran cold. It was the clear silhouette of a person. They were standing directly over me, just inches away. They weren't moving, they weren't calling out, they were just standing there, looking down at where I was sleeping. I couldn't breathe. Was it a ranger? A lost camper? Why were they silent? Then the shadow moved. It crouched down slowly. I watched in horror as a hand pressed against the tent fabric, right where my face was. Scritch! The fingers traced a line down the wall of the tent, down to the bottom of the door, to the zippers. Clink! The metal tab jingled. Then, agonizingly slowly, zip! The rain fly was being pulled open, inch by inch. I couldn't take it. I screamed, "Get away! I have a gun!" I clicked my flashlight on. I shined the beam right at the door. The shadow bolted. I heard heavy footsteps sprinting away. Thump, thump. They crashed through the brush, and then splash! A massive splash, not a boat launching, but the sound of a body hitting the water. I heard frantic splashing. Someone was swimming away from the island. I stayed in that tent all night with my knife, shivering. When the sun came up, I stepped out. The campsite was empty, but the ground told a different story. The mud around my tent was churned up. There were footprints. They were bare footprints. Someone had been walking around my campsite in the middle of the wilderness in 40-degree weather without shoes. The tracks circled my tent 3 times, just watching me. I followed the tracks, and they didn't lead to the canoe landing. They led to a steep drop-off on the back of the island. The tracks went right to the edge and disappeared into the deep water. There was no boat drag mark, no raft. This person had swum to my island in the middle of the night in freezing water just to stand over my tent. I packed up and paddled for 10 hours straight. I reported it to the rangers. They checked the logs. No one else had been registered in that zone for 5 days. I haven't been back to the boundary waters since, and sometimes, when I'm sleeping in my own bed, I wake up to the sound of a zipper, and I have to turn on the light just to make sure I'm alone.
My name is Mike. This happened in the Anza Borrego Desert in California. I have always preferred desert camping over the woods. In the forest, you always feel like something is watching you from behind a tree. But the desert is open. You can see for miles. I always thought that meant I was safe. I was wrong. Last November, my buddy Jason and I decided to go off-roading. We took my truck out into the Badlands, looking for a spot that was completely off the grid. We wanted silence. We wanted isolation. We found what we thought was the perfect campsite. It was a box canyon, a dead end with sheer sandstone walls rising up on 3 sides. It felt cozy, protected from the wind. We parked the truck in the center of the clearing. We set up camp. We were sleeping in the bed of my truck, which was covered by a fiberglass camper shell. Around 11 p.m., the fire was dying down to embers. We were lying on our sleeping bags in the open truck bed, just staring up at the stars. The desert silence was heavy, absolute. "Hey," Jason whispered. His voice was tense. "Look at the ridge." I looked up. The canyon wall towered about 100 feet above us, cutting a sharp black line against the starry sky. At first, I didn't see anything. Then, I saw it. A tiny flash, orange. It would glow bright for a second, then fade, then glow again. It was a cigarette cherry. Someone was up there, sitting on the very edge of the cliff, legs dangling over the side, looking straight down at us. "Is that a person?" I whispered. "Must be. Who else would be out here?" We watched in silence for 10 minutes. The ember flicked out in a long, glowing arc as the person tossed the butt over the edge. It disappeared into the darkness below. Then, nothing. No movement. No sound. We tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was just a hiker, but why sit in the dark without a flashlight? We decided to be safe. We closed the back hatch of the camper shell and locked it. We crawled into our sleeping bags. I fell into a restless sleep. Around 2 a.m., I woke. The air was freezing. Crunch, crunch, crunch. The sound was distinct. It was the sound of heavy boots walking on dry desert gravel. It was coming from the mouth of the canyon. Someone was walking toward the truck. I shook Jason awake. I put a finger to my lips. His eyes went wide. We listened together. The footsteps were slow, deliberate.
They walked right up to the remains of our fire pit, about 10 feet from the truck. Then they stopped. We lay there in the pitch black of the camper shell. I slowly reached into my pocket for my truck keys. I gripped them so tight the metal dug into my palm. For 5 long minutes, there was total silence. I thought maybe they had left. Then a voice spoke. It was right outside the fiberglass shell. It was raspy, dry, like he hadn't drunk water in days. "I know you're awake." My blood ran cold. My heart hammered against the bed of the truck. "I can hear you breathing," the voice said. It sounded amused. "You picked a bad spot, boys. This is a dead end." Slam! A flat hand slapped the side of the truck, right next to my head. The whole vehicle shook. Slam! 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 The man started pounding on the shell. He was circling the truck. He was running his hands along the windows, trying the handles. He started laughing. It was a high-pitched, manic giggle that didn't match the deep voice. Come out," he taunted. "I just want to see you." I knew we couldn't stay in the back. I scrambled toward the cab. My truck has a small sliding window that connects the camper shell to the front seat. "Go!" Jason yelled. I squeezed through the tiny opening. I fell into the driver's seat. I jammed the keys into the ignition. The man saw me moving. He ran to the driver's side window. He smashed his face against the glass. I will never forget that face. It was illuminated by the dashboard lights. His skin was leathery and sunburned. His eyes were incredibly wide, unblinking. His mouth was stretched into a smile that looked painful. His teeth were black. He held up a large, jagged rock in his right hand. I cranked the engine. It sputtered. "Come on!" I screamed. He swung the rock. Crack! The driver's side window shattered. Glass sprayed all over my lap. His hand reached inside. He grabbed my shoulder. His grip was like iron. I slammed the truck into drive. I floored it. The tires spun in the loose sand. For a terrifying second, we didn't move. Then, the tires caught traction. The truck lurched forward violently. I knocked the man aside. I heard him scream as the rear fender clipped him. We tore out of that canyon doing 60 miles an hour over rocks and washboards. We nearly flipped the truck twice. We didn't stop until we hit the paved highway, 20 miles away. We called the police from a gas station. They went out there the next morning with a patrol unit. They found our campsite. The man was gone. But they found something else. At the top of the cliff, right where we had seen the cigarette ember, they found a small cave hidden behind some brush. Inside, there were dozens of driver's licenses, wallets, backpacks, camping gear. It was a trophy stash. We weren't the first people he had watched from that ridge. He had been doing this for years, waiting for campers to trap themselves in the dead end. We were just the lucky ones who got away.
This story comes from a girl named Lauren. She is an experienced hiker who spends a lot of time in the White Mountains of New Hampshire. She's tough, smart, and she doesn't scare easily. She knows how to handle bears. She knows how to handle the cold. But after this trip, she refuses to go camping alone ever again. It was early December. Lauren wanted to do a solo winter camping trip to test out some new gear. She hiked about 6 miles up a trail that led to an old, abandoned logging camp. It wasn't a designated campground, but it was flat and clear. There was about a foot of snow on the ground. When she arrived at the clearing, it was dead quiet. Snow absorbs sound, making everything feel muffled and isolated. She set up her 4-season tent. She cooked a dehydrated meal. By 5 p.m., the sun had set, and it was pitch black. She crawled into her sleeping bag, burying herself deep to stay warm. She read a book by headlamp for an hour, then drifted off to sleep. She woke up because she was cold. The temperature had dropped significantly. She rolled over to check her watch. It was 3:15 a.m. As she shifted in her bag, the rustling of the nylon stopped, and in the silence, she heard a sound outside. Crunch, crunch, crunch. It was the sound of dry, powdery snow being compressed. Footsteps. Lauren froze. Her first thought was a moose or a bear passing through, but she listened to the rhythm. Crunch, pause, crunch, pause. The rhythm was wrong for an animal. It was bipedal, 2 feet, heavy boots. The footsteps circled her tent slowly, once, twice. Then they stopped right at the foot of her tent. She held her breath. Her heart was pounding so hard she thought the person outside could hear it. Then a sound cut through the silence that made her stomach turn. Zip, zip, zip. It was the sound of a metal zipper, not her tent zipper. It sounded like the zipper of a heavy winter jacket being pulled up and down, over and over again. Zip up, zip down, zip up, zip down. It was a nervous, repetitive fidgeting. Whoever was standing there was just playing with their zipper, inches from her feet, standing in the freezing cold, doing nothing but listening to the sound of metal on metal. Lauren slowly reached for her bear spray. She pulled the safety clip off with a trembling hand. "Who's there?" she called out. She tried to make her voice sound strong, but it cracked. The zipping stopped instantly. Dead silence. "I have a satellite phone. The Rangers are on their way. Leave now." For a long, agonizing moment, there was nothing. Just the wind howling through the trees. Then, a voice whispered. It was right outside the tent wall, near her head. "I know you're alone, Lauren." She gasped. The air left her lungs. She hadn't told anyone her name. She hadn't seen anyone on the trail for miles. How did they know? Then she realized. Her backpack. She had left her backpack leaning against a tree outside the tent to save space inside. Her luggage tag, with her full name and address, was strapped to it. The person began to hum. It was a low, discordant tune, like a nursery rhyme sung in the wrong key. It was wet and wheezy. As they hummed, they dragged a finger along the side of the tent fabric. Scritch. The finger pressed hard into the nylon. It traced the outline of her body through the thin wall. It started at her head and slowly, agonizingly, traced down to her shoulder. She screamed. Panic took over. She grabbed the bear spray. She aimed it at the mesh vent at the top of the tent, and she sprayed a massive, blinding cloud of pepper spray right through the fabric, hoping it would drift out to whoever was standing there. She heard a cough, then a laugh. A dry, raspy laugh. "Spicy," the voice whispered. Then the footsteps crunched away. They didn't run. They didn't panic. They walked, calmly, slowly, back into the dark woods. Lauren didn't wait to see if they were coming back. She didn't unzip the door. She grabbed her keys, she grabbed her pocket knife, and she slashed the back wall of the tent open in one motion. She sprinted into the darkness. She didn't put on her backpack. She didn't pack her gear. She ran the 6 miles back to the trailhead in the snow using only the moonlight. She fell. She scrambled. She didn't stop until she was locked inside her car. The Rangers went up the next day to retrieve her gear. They found her tent slashed open, but not just by her. The front door of the tent, where she would have come out if she had used the zipper, was sliced to ribbons. Her sleeping bag had been stabbed repeatedly. But the most disturbing part was what they found in the snow, the footprints circling her tent. They weren't boots, they were bare footprints. Someone had walked 6 miles into the mountains, in December, in sub-zero temperatures, in the snow, without shoes. They tracked the footprints for a mile, then they disappeared onto a rocky outcrop, as if the person had simply evaporated into the cold mountain air.